Hello there, we have a 987 Gen 2, 987's rule. Look at this car over here. We have got Tom's 987 Gen 2. It's about time we had a 987 on this channel. I'm just super excited. We've had the 718s, we've had the 981s. They're great cars, but this is where my story started. The 987 Gen 2. This car actually trumps me on spec, but they're all great cars, and we'll kind of come on to it later. Every Cayman is a great Cayman, and I'm going to take my own medicine. I know I've been kind of going about GTS crazy, okay? The best Cayman is the one that you can afford, and whichever generation suits you. Look at this, we got Xenons in here. I have not seen Xenons. I don't even think Julian's Cayman R had got Xenons in the front. We're going to go through this car. This is Tom's 987 Gen 2. Awesome location. I've travelled down to Kettering. Well, that's probably not the exact place, but it's about there. A great car. This is a one-take video, by the way, apart from that car that's just gone through. We're going to get in the car, we'll listen to Tom's story, and check out the car. The 987, I've got to say, is an awesome car. I need to see more 987 owners, and I know it was great. A few of you reached out on the comments and were like, Max, what are you doing getting a 718 GTS? You represent the 987 community. Well, if you're a 987 owner, just try and be a bit more vocal. Put down a comment down below, sort of say something, because I found the 987 owners are a bit of a quieter bunch, and the 981 and 718 kind of owners through this channel could potentially be a little bit louder. But hey, let's get on a move. This is a great car. Let's listen to Tom's story on how he got a 987 Gen 2. We have the cars behind us. Here's Tom's 987 Gen 2. Mine is just parked over there behind, as you can see. And Tom has kindly agreed to kind of like walk us through the spec. He did say on camera, well, before we got on camera, he said he knows all the spec off by heart. So Tom, we're going to test you, mate.
If anyone's out there and they go, oh, you missed so-and-so, yeah, well, I tried. All right, I tried.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
So no, it's a really nice spec car, to be fair. This is what drew me to it. So Xenons, which is rare actually on the 987s.
Yeah.
You can always tell because you've got the chrome little washer headlights there. I kind of wish they were body coloured. You could spec that on the 981s, but not on the 987. So that's some boring trivia for you. So Xenons, obviously optional extra. These wheels, these are a rare wheel. They're Carrera 2s, so if anyone out there's got a 911 Gen 2, they'll know. 19-inch with Bridgestones matching all round, Potenzas. They're a really nice finish as well. Me and Max were talking earlier. They've still got the original OEM finish, so these have been refurbished actually by Lepsums, who are a really high-end body shop. They've got the original finish, so they have the black outer face, and the barrel is still the contrasting colour. I really, really like that. That's quite rare. Most people, they respray them, they go all black or all silver, so I like that. Moving round, gloss black intake grills and gloss black front grills as well. These were silver, actually originally from factory, but I bought it from Paragon and they kindly agreed to spray these black for me, so it's factory, because I didn't really like the silver, but that's just personal preference. Moving around to the back, pretty standard back here. The only optional extra we've got are the black tailpipes, so I like that. Some people prefer the contrast of the silver. Personally, I really like that. I just think it's more subtle, just kind of blends in. They're the sport tips. Doesn't have sports exhaust, but does have the sports tips. And like I say, they're black. Matte black, I just think it just smartens the back end of the car.
I just thought they were dirty.
They probably are dirty as well, mate, but it's all right.
You were having to go at how filthy my car is. I mean, to be fair, look, it does need a bit of a wash, but it did get a bit dirty on the way down anyway, so that's my excuse.
Yeah, exactly. He's always got an excuse. Right. Also, PDC as well. Small option, but useful when you're reversing into your garage and stuff like that. Inside, this is quite a rare spec. Again, this is something that drew me to the car. So anyone that knows 987s will know extended leather is quite a rare option. So you get extended leather door cards, extended leather here, along here, all the dashboard, centre console, and glove box storage lid. If I go around, Max, if you stay there.
Yep.
So extended leather everywhere, which I really like. It kind of upgrades the 987 interior, just makes it feel a bit more premium. Sports chrono plus, it does have that, which is quite a rare option on the manual cars. So that just gives you, obviously it alters your traction control, and it also gives you track kind of readout data. Standard wheel, I was talking to Max, I said if I keep the car, this is the one thing I would change, because obviously you can get the sports design wheel, which for the money is probably over $1,000. It's a lot of money for what it is, but personal preference, the thing you hold on to, that's kind of what gives you the vibe of the car, and I just kind of like the idea of having a nice upgraded wheel, perhaps in Alcantara. That would then match the gear knob. I fitted this gear knob, this is standard, this is actually from a 997.1 GT3 manual, so I found this online. They're bloody expensive, but it had to be Porsche original because I just don't do aftermarket stuff. So this is the Alcantara shift knob from that. Now inside here, this is rare. This is, again, it's a small option, but I think it makes the difference. So this is like the silver, gloss silver sort of interior package, and obviously all of this is gloss silver as well. Now this did go with the external stuff being silver. Obviously that's now black, but this in here is still silver, and I just think it kind of brightens up the interior. It kind of matches all the sort of chrome work here and just around the dials and this sort of thing. So I like that. That's personal preference. I like it. Obviously Sports Plus seats, so the slightly bigger, firmer seats. Porsche logo on the headrests. Cayman S embossed here. These are trivial options really, but they're all nice to have. They just kind of lift the interior a little bit. PCM3, heated seats, automatic climate control. That's a random option. A lot of people don't know they have. So if you don't have auto climate control, you literally just have sort of high and low on your temperature. If you have the automatic climate control, you can actually set it at like say 21 degrees. So you set it at 21 and then it's totally controlled automatically, which I quite like. Obviously has the sort of plug-in here for your iPhone. Again, in a new car you kind of expect this, but on this Porsche it was all optional extra, so it's got that along with Bluetooth. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, in terms of the chassis, standard chassis, no PASM. I'm personally not bothered about PASM. I kind of like the ride height where it sits. It's a nice sort of fairly well damped. Oh, it does have the Bose as well. The Bose kind of gets a hard time on the forums. Personally, I think it's fine. Is it high-end audio? No. But who buys an old 987 for the audio quality? Not me. So I think that's it really. That pretty much covers everything. So yeah, there we go.
Hello there, we are in Tom's 987 Gen 2. Oh, it's a great car. What I'd like to sort of cover is very interesting story. Not only do you have a 987, you had a 987 previously back in the days.
I did.
You then got a 981 and you're back in a 987.
I am, mate, yeah.
That is a proper cool, and one thing I'm loving, Tom, you know, he's 28, you know, you may, you know, if you don't mind me saying your age, you know.
Yeah, yeah, well, you've said it now, mate, there's no going back.
Yeah,
you can edit it out if you like.
No, this is a one-take video. So that is great that you're 28 and you're in a 987, and I'm just loving all of this. So let's roll it all back a bit, Tom, if we can. Thanks for joining us, thanks for reaching out to me on the channel. Great to have you here, and let's start with your Porsche journey, mate.
So it started off really with, like Max says, a 987 Gen 1. Kind of fell in love with that car really, had that for about a year. That was an orange car, bit in your face, but I did love it. It was an S Sport, so it came with all the options, PASM, sports exhaust, blah blah blah. Really good car, good condition, enjoyed it. I sold that car and kind of told myself I need to be a bit more sensible now really. I need to...
Can I roll you back one little bit? So obviously you had previous cars, I think you had BMWs in the past.
I did,
what was it that kind of made you go, I want to get a Porsche, like the Cayman in particular?
I think really the Cayman's kind of an entry point into sort of Porsche ownership. They're kind of sensible running costs, fairly practical really for a sports car, quite rare. I was fussy with the spec, and that's kind of why I went for the Sport. You get a lot of Gen 1 and Gen 2 Caymans like this around, but they're kind of not great specs, whereas the S Sport, people watching, if they know what the S Sport is, kind of, it was like a run out edition for the Gen 1 Caymans, and they kind of came with everything on them, so I kind of knew that's what I wanted. I wasn't necessarily sold on the orange straight away, but then I seen it and I fell in love with it, so I went with that. But in terms
By the way, Tom's the same guy that said shark blue's quite a loud colour.
Yeah,
he's driving around in an orange Cayman.
Yeah, in fairness, well, yeah, that was years ago though. In fairness, this car is black, so I've been a little bit more subtle with my old age. Okay. But with the Gen 1, like I say, I really enjoyed the car, and kind of what got me into it really was just, like I say, sort of the practicality and the running costs. Really, for what you get and the performance, that it's pretty sensible, really. You know, people think that the brand of Porsche, oh, you know, they can be really expensive to run, blah blah blah. But if you buy a good example, they're really not that bad. And what you have to remember as well is, in terms of depreciation and stuff, they hold their value. So yes, all right, you might pay a bit of a premium for the badge. Once you're in the car, if you look after it and you buy a good example, well, they look after you. You don't lose loads of money. So I had that for a while. Like I say, really enjoyed it. And then I've sold it, and I was going to be more sensible, and I thought, well, you know, I don't know what I was, probably 22 or something at the time, 23 maybe, and I thought I should really perhaps buy something a bit more sensible, maybe get it a bit cheaper, look to buy a house, blah blah blah. That went out the window, and I then upgraded to a 981 Boxster S.
Oh, so you went straight into the 981 Boxster?
Pretty much,
okay.
Yeah. It, like I say, it wasn't really my intention, but I just kind of, it came up for sale, private. I actually bought the car privately.
Okay.
And it was a really, really nice spec again. So like I say, the spec for me is what kind of makes the car, makes it stand out. And
so
also,
in terms of it being a Boxster, were you like, the spec was great, I'm buying a car, or were you like, I've had a Cayman, I want to get a Boxster now?
Honestly, funnily enough, at the time, I wanted another Cayman. Well, I kind of thought, well, you know, I don't know what to do. Like I said, I was going to be more sensible. And then I thought, well, maybe I should get a 981 Cayman. At the time, the prices were just too much. I couldn't really afford it, but I could afford the Boxster, because for whatever reason, the Boxsters have always been cheaper. Okay. So, you know, my mate sort of took the piss a little bit and just said, oh, you know, you don't want a Boxster, blah, blah, blah. But then I find the people that say that, you ask them what car they've got, and they've probably got a Fiesta or something, you know, and they say it's a poor man's Porsche. Like you say, any Porsche you can afford is the good Porsche, you know, if it's the right example. I seen this one, and I thought, you know what, I'll go have a look at it. Really liked it, like I say, and I bought it privately. The guy that had owned it was sound. Really, really good example. I think the list price for it, I mean, I bought it with 8,000 miles on the clock privately, as I say. I think the list price for it was something ridiculous, like 70k. Honestly, it was ridiculous. It had most conceivable options. I mean, it even had ventilated seats, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was like an £800 option. Would I spec ventilated seats? No. But whoever bought that car kind of had an open checkbook sort of approach. So it had sports exhaust, PASM, chrono. It was manual as well, which was quite rare for a Boxster, because a lot of them tend to be PDK, and I wanted a manual. So I bought that car, and I loved it. And again, like, I had that probably a year or so, and did all right out of that. I mean, I sold it. I didn't part exit. I traded it in.
Do you recall any of your kind of driver experiences going from the 987 to the 981? Yeah.
So people do compare the two. I mean, they are ultimately, you know, very similar, but there are subtle differences. I do think that the 987 is probably a slightly better driver's car. Obviously, the hydraulic steering does make a difference. The 981, more comfortable for sure, more comfortable. We were talking earlier. Without doubt, the 981 is more comfortable. Perhaps as a daily, I would still go for a 981 now. But in terms of if you're just using it for a weekend car, really, and you're not daily in it, I would perhaps argue that although it's not necessarily quite as quick, a 987 is actually more of a driver-focused car. A little bit rawer, better sort of steering feel. You know, they don't quite sound as good. But then things like, you know, sort of the pedals, the brake feel, that sort of thing. I personally feel the clutch is a little bit heavier. They're a little bit more involving to drive.
That's quite a mature outlook, I mean, if you don't mind me saying, because I mean, either you've had quite a few cars, but for 28, to already sort of have that, because we, you know, the cars are just getting a little bit softer and a bit more detached.
They are, yeah. I kind of think with each generation that sort of comes out, they do tend to get a bit softer each time. That's just the way cars are going, though, I think, really, to try and sort of appeal to mass markets, really. You know, people don't necessarily want a slightly heavier clutch. People don't want heavier steering. People perhaps aren't so bothered about hydraulic steering. They go, well, I don't know what hydraulic steering is. I just like a steering wheel that's easy to turn.
Steering, we haven't mentioned the steering yet, because it's...
Steering's hydraulic, you know.
Which is a massive thing, isn't it?
It's a huge statement.
Or whatever, you know. I mean, Porsche still know who's buying their cars, but things like electric steering, you know, they implement it, and they do a good job of it in comparison to perhaps other manufacturers. But when you drive the cars back to back, you can tell a difference.
Yeah.
Some people aren't bothered, you know, and I guess the modern consumer of a Porsche product probably isn't that bothered. But I think that a 987 is good value for money for what you get.
And I have to keep reminding myself, this whole channel started from this generation, the 987, because for what you get for your money, I think it's phenomenal, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the Gen 1s, I mean, this is a Gen 2 we're in now, so obviously, long story, but I moved out of the 981 Boxster, and I went away from Porsche for a bit, and then I've bought this. But if you look at the Gen 1 Caymans, really, they're good value. They're incredible value, really. I mean, there's a few things that kind of hold the Gen 1 back in terms of pricing. So there's a lot of people say about bore scoring and IMS bearing and things like that. And obviously the infotainment in them sometimes can put people off, the fact you don't have Bluetooth and sort of creature comforts that probably people expect. So, but if you can forego those things and sort of you're not, you know, that doesn't put you off really. If you can buy a good car, they're amazing value. And like you probably think now, like a Gen 1, you could probably get a reasonable Gen 1 with sort of mediocre mileage, I don't know, probably 15k maybe, you know, for like something like reasonably spec'd. Well, 15k for a Porsche, you know, and for what you're getting out of it, really, I think it's good value.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting conversation, because that could be almost the options someone specs up
of course it
on another Porsche, on a new Porsche. You know?
Well, like my 981 Boxster, like I say, the list price of that basically 70k. I mean, I don't know what the car was before options. I don't know. Can you remember what they're 45, 50?
Yeah,
I don't know.
it sounds like at least 20k of options.
Yeah, it was. I think I worked it out once, and it was something like 15, 20k. Whereas that, like you say, that buys you a Gen 1 Cayman, which is such good value. And the older cars, the Gen 1s, perhaps will cost you a little bit more in terms of upkeep. I mean, you've obviously, you know, you've spoken about that before in terms of the upkeep of some of the older cars, you know, can be a little bit more expensive, but like I say, it's made up in the residuals. And don't forget, servicing's every 2 years as well. You know, you don't necessarily have to service it every year. Porsche requirement's 2 years, 20,000 miles. So I think really they're sort of a good buy. You know, a Gen 1. If you're moving into Gen 2, like this is, you're probably paying another 10k. But then with that, you get the DFI engine, so bore scoring in the IMS just isn't an issue.
So when you you sold the 981, you were out of cars for a bit, you said.
Yes.
And then you've obviously got this now. So you obviously woke up one day, or was it something in the back of your mind like?
Well, so what happened, I had my Gen 1, then I moved into the Boxster, and then after that I was like, right, okay, now I really must be sensible, because I'm 24, whatever I was at the time, effectively a 40 grand car, and I thought I really need to buy a house and stop being an idiot. So I sold it, I chopped it in, took the cash, bought a house, and that was it. And from that sort of day onwards, I was like, the first chance I can, I'm buying another Porsche.
And at that time, the generation was unspecified.
The generation was unspecified, but ideally, I wanted a newer product. So, because I'd had a Gen 1.
What went wrong?
Well, this is a sweet spot for me personally. Okay. So, if you look at pricing at the moment, albeit prices are slightly high now for whatever reason, but you're only talking 2-3 grand higher than perhaps what they were last year. If you look at like the sort of the product pricing sort of structure at the moment, so like I say, you've got a 981 Gen 1, say 15k. You've got a 987.2, say 25k to perhaps 30k for a really clean one. And then you've got sort of your bump up then, if you go into a 981S, you're still talking 45k to get a nice one. The prices are rock solid. And then if you go into a GTS, which is again just the same with a few more options chucked at it, for a nice one now you're talking 50k.
Yeah, easy. Yeah.
When you compare that to this is say 20 in the 25 to 30k region. Yeah. You're looking at, you know, half the budget really for what I would argue is 75% of the car.
You know, you're really not helping me and my quest to get a GTS 4.0, because let's say that's a £70,000 car, and let's just say mine's a £25,000 car. You know, as you say, 75% of the car, 25% of the price.
this is the thing that if everyone was this sort of if everyone had this mindset, no one would buy a new car. Because you can always make that argument. It's the law of diminishing returns. You can always spend 50% of the car for 80% of the performance. Someone could argue that with a Gen 1 and Gen 2 987. Someone could say, why would I want to spend another 10 grand when, all right, you get an updated engine, but 10 grand more, what more do you get? Arguably more reliability, you hope so, with the engine, and a bit nicer infotainment. And someone might go, well, I'm happy to spend 15 grand. So really, ultimately, it comes down to your priorities and your budget. Like you say, you buy the car to suit your budget, and you kind of work with it. I mean, with the Gen 1 cars, I think the whole bore scoring thing is an issue. Pretty much all of them have got bore scoring now, but you know that when you move into the car.
Do you know anyone that's actually got a Gen 1 with a...
I don't personally. No one I know at the moment's got a Gen 1, but I mean, it's kind of commonly accepted that on the higher mileage cars, they probably have a bit of bore scoring, but that's not the end of the world. And the IMS issue, really, that's 2005 cars. That's very early cars. Most people will tell you from that point onwards, it's kind of a non-issue. I mean, a good mate of mine works at Porsche Silverstone, and
can you get me a discount?
I should ask him the same question, mate. I guess the answer's probably not. And he said the amount of cars they actually have in with issues with IMS is few and far between. If you read the forums, you can get scared out of buying anything. You really could. Like, all you ever hear is the horror stories online. People go online to go, oh my God, I'm having X, Y, and Z or whatever, or they're asking questions about it. No one goes online to say everything I've done's been great, and I've never. Most people are commenting to say that they've had an issue, or I'm looking at buying X, Y, and Z. Will there be an issue? And then all you'll get is other people then saying, oh well, I've heard about. It's always Chinese whispers. If you actually ask someone, do they personally know anyone that's had any experience with issues? They go, no, but I've heard on the forums.
Exactly.
No, but I've heard on the forums. It's like, well, yeah, you have, but really, it gets blown out of proportion in my eyes.
Oh yeah. So how long have you had this car, by the way?
Not long. A month. Hang on, where are we now? Okay. So we're in July. Yeah, a month, couple of months now.
Okay. Was finding it quite easy? I mean, are you? How do you sort of keep track? Are you an auto trader?
Yeah. So we obviously had a brief chat about this earlier. Much to the despair of my missus, I am probably an auto trader addict. So some people sit on their phone scrolling on Instagram. I'm afraid my sad vice is auto trader. I looked every day for like over a year for this car. Well, like I said earlier, I really think that the spec kind of makes the car. Gen 2s are quite rare anyway, really. There's a lot more Gen 1s than there are Gen 2s. For whatever reason. So I'd look every day, and there was a few things I wanted. So I really wanted Xenons, which is quite a niche thing, but just from outside, I just think the Xenons give the car more presence. And also, the standard halogen bulbs are actually pretty crap. If you've just got the standard lights at nighttime driving, they're not great. The Xenons also, they have the corner in function as well, so they follow you around the corner, which a lot of people don't know. And they're great. So I wanted the Xenons. Ideally, I wanted 19-inch wheels. I was a bit fussy with the wheels because there's a few different designs, and I specifically wanted these wheels, which are the Carrera 2, so they're actually off the 987.2 Carrera. So I'm sure people will see some external footage of the car and they'll recognise them. But they're quite a rare wheel. I either wanted these or the Spiders, which obviously you get on the R. They're both lightweight, so I wanted those wheels. I wanted the Xenons, and then in terms of inside, so one of the, not a drawback, but one of the features that a lot of people don't like about the 987 is the interior. They say it's dated. So admittedly the Gen 2 is better than the Gen 1. Obviously you get the updated infotainment and things, but let's face it, it's still kind of outdated really compared to...
I mean, I think I'm at the age where I quite like it.
Yeah, because, I don't mind it. It's kind of timeless. It
sort of suits the car.
Yeah.
I think once you start going a bit high tech, I think tech itself dates. Yeah. So you look at like modern cars now, it'll be like, oh, look at the size of the screen.
Exactly. So, but one of the things that people don't like is the sort of standard sort of plastics in here. So I really wanted extended leather, which again is an odd option. A lot of people didn't bother speccing it. This has got it. So that was a big plus point. Ideally, I wanted manual, which this has. I wanted Bluetooth. I ideally wanted PCM, which obviously this has. I wanted the multimedia plug-in, so you've got USB, aux, and like from your iPhone, which this has. I wanted the Bose. The Bose kind of gets a bit of a hard time.
That was actually on your...
Yeah, it was. I mean, I had the Sound Pack Plus in my Gen 1 Cayman, which is all right. I mean, then again, you couldn't really ever test it because you couldn't plug an aux in. You couldn't do Bluetooth music. All you could really do was CDs in that. So I can't say I really tested it, but it was okay. It was like pretty average sound system. The Bose in the 981 Cayman, I actually thought was really good. I'm not an audiophile. Like, you know, some people will, you know, a lot of what people says goes over my head. But, you know, from sort of a subjective standpoint, I listened to the Bose in my old Boxer and I was like, oh, it's really good. So I wanted Bose in this.
Okay. Do you find it compares in the 987?
No, it's not as good in this.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, a lot of people on the forums, again, give it a hard time and they say, oh, it's crap. I wouldn't say it's crap. You can kind of tweak it. I've had a bit of a play around with this. So I factory reset the system and then I just upped the fader, so I upped it slightly, the balance to the front of the vehicle, and then I upped like the bass to like +3 and the treble to +3, and that's improved it. I mean, we're not talking high-end audio, but then the car's not really about that for me. All I want is sort of, if I can whack my music on in a CD or via my iPhone or whatever, and as long as it's reasonable, you know, you know, it's not that sort of car.
Just bought this car about a month ago.
Yeah, that's right.
So when you buy a car, are you like, I'll keep this like until I change my mind, or did you get into it thinking?
Oh bloody hell, mate! I mean, my missus was like, right, you're deleting the Auto Trader app. You've got this car now. You should be happy with it. And I go, yeah, it's great. And then I find myself just going on Auto Trader again just to see what's out there. Next thing I know, I'm sending her WhatsApp messages like, do you like this? Do you like this? And she's like, I'm not responding. You're getting on my nerves.
So would you still stick with a brand, or are you like?
I would stick with a brand. Yeah, I would. I mean, like I said, I know you pay a big premium for perhaps a 981 over this, and do I think it's double the car? No, I don't. But I'd like to scratch the itch at some point. I'm not desperate for it, you know. I love this car and I think it's great, and you'll probably testify, it's in great condition as well. I bought this from Paragon, who are a good specialist. At the moment, we were just talking about this earlier, I do drive like a granddad, admittedly, most of the time. I'm averaging 28.1 to the gallon. I'm sorry, but you can't complain, can you? You can't complain at that. For a 3.4 litre, where are you going to get that? This will do over 30 on a run. It ticks along in 6th gear at sort of, you know, 2,500 RPM at 70 or whatever it is. Ticks along. And I just think, you know, it makes perfect sense to sort of go on a long drive with this.
I mean, I can see it's got 58,000 miles on the clock. Are you sort of like worried about putting miles on? Or you just like,
nah, not bothered, mate.
Okay,
not bothered. The reason being, some people go, oh, you know, 50,000 miles on a Porsche. Oh no, that's moon miles. You know, that's what some people think. What they kind of forget is, well, if I went out there now and I bought a 987 Gen 2 Cayman like this with half the mileage on, okay, so it's half the mileage. All of the things that need to be changed sort of on any car would still be due on that because of the age. You know, items perish. So, I don't know, like the cooling pipes, you know, you've had done on yours. You know, brake discs and pads. All right, you've not used the car. All right, so the backs of the discs are corroded.
Correct,
so you still got to change them. So,
did you get any sort of paperwork when you bought this car?
Yeah, I've got a big wedge from Paragon.
So has it had anything like coolant pipes?
So it hasn't actually had the coolant pipes done. They're original, because that was one of the questions. Because you know, it's 1,500 quid, say, to get that done. So I said to Paragon, who are incredibly meticulous, if people are watching now and they've dealt with Paragon, they'll know. I said to them, oh, what are the state of the cooling pipes? I said, no, they're spot on. Okay. Took their word for it. And then after I bought the car, I just went to my mate who owns a specialist garage and just had him look over it, and he was like, mate, this car's mint. He said, and I said, how many miles do you think it's done? He's like, I don't know, like 25, 30,000. I said, no, like double that. He said, bloody hell. He said, it's immaculate. And because I'm a bit OCD, I've looked underneath the car myself at the cooling pipes. You can sort of see them above the subframe. They're absolutely spot on. There's no swelling, no sort of seeping. They're bang on.
I think it's always worth getting a decent independent specialist.
Yeah, with this car, when I bought it had new discs and pads all round at Paragon, major service, new clutch, which is a big one. Lower control arms and bushes all round, geometry checkup. Front bumper respray, wheel refurbished, new N1 rated Bridgestone Potenzas. Like I say, major service, obviously diff fluid, gearbox fluid, spark plugs, auxiliary belt, tensioner. Honestly, had the kitchen sink thrown at it.
So it's had all the kind of like belt tension or something like mine as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But all of these things, like they all need doing.
Yeah.
But if you keep on top of them, the car should stay reliable. Oh, new battery, stuff like that, little bits and bobs. And so don't get put off. You know, if there's cars out there now with 60, 70, 80,000 miles, if they've been looked after properly, don't let that put you off. You know, if you're a prospective buyer out there and you're setting a range of, oh, I don't want to go over 40,000 miles. Why? Just if the car is at 60,000 miles, it's been looked after properly, great, because that means everything that should have been replaced has been replaced. You know, a car that's 40,000 miles, 30,000 miles, that's sat in someone's garage, and all right, they've done oil and filter every couple of years. Oh yeah, great, low mileage. Then you get it up on the ramps and go, well, the tyres are perished.
Well, it's I mean, all the cars need moving, because I think you know, if I'm going to get my 718 GTS, I was potentially thinking about storing my Cayman, and then I looked into like, you know how to properly store a car. Cars don't like sitting around.
No, they don't.
Even if you pump up the tyres, the suspension, the dampers, it all needs to move. It needs air going over it. And then I was like, I don't think you want to store a car.
No, you don't need to. Like these cars, you know, they're not hypercars. You know what I mean? They're made to be used, and use them and look after them properly, and don't let higher mileage cars put you off. I mean, look at look at some older Porsches now. Some of the old air-cooled Porsches, they've all got over 100,000 miles on. They're fine. Or even 996s. You know, like a 996, 911, something like that. The prices of them are strong, but they've all got like 100,000 miles on them, or some of them have got lower mileage. And then you look at the history. Oh yeah, they've got history. Or I've not drove the car for the last 4 years, so it's only done 300 miles, so I didn't bother getting it serviced. So then you get it up on the ramps. Oh well, look, bushes are perished. Oh, tyres are perished. You know, that's tyres. 4 tyres are 1,200 quid, aren't they? If you go M1 rated.
Tom, thanks for sharing your thoughts about this car and how you got the 987 Gen 2.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. At least the sun's coming out just as like days beginning to end, but that's what happens. That's how it goes. Thank you very much for kind of reaching out to me. It's a great car.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. It's great to hear your story on this channel, mate.
Good.
Cool. All right. Enjoy life and cars to the max. Until the next video. See ya. Done.